I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
Welcome to a very special edition of It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club. It is our 1-year PODIVERSARY.
Yay! We're 1 year old. We haven't killed each other. It's 1 year.
Well, we've come close a few times.
We have.
We thought we would take the time on this episode to share with you some of the highlights and some of the lowlights of this year. And hopefully you'll get to know us a little better too in the process. We started this podcast last year, probably in February, where the idea started stewing, and
it stewed and stewed.
And Mom and myself did our very first episode on April 13th today, and then Kathy joined us about a month later?
2 months later.
I think about 2 months later.
Was it about 2 months later? And
I was invited. I didn't just barge in.
And,
of course she was.
And she's been a great addition to the show, and we are glad she's here. Start off with, what was your favorite book that you reviewed this year?
I know
it's tough.
There's been a few. I would say if I had to pick one, it would be Jane Hasseldine's book, The Last Time I Saw Him.
Oh, Mom, yes, that was such a good book. Oh, my gosh, I enjoyed that so much. It was like a roller coaster ride.
It was one of those, if you haven't read it, grab it. It is just amazing. It will grab your heartstrings and it'll grab you by the seat of your pants, and you cannot put this book down.
I actually tried to prepare for this, and I looked back over all the books that I read and reviewed. I'm going to say my favorite mystery and then my favorite nonfiction.
Okay.
Because
that's a good, yeah.
The favorite mystery, I think, or one of the ones that I really enjoyed, was The Broken Token.
Oh, Chris Nixon.
Yes, that was an excellent book.
It really was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed his other books too, but that one really just grabbed me. I loved all the characters.
I totally agree.
I do too. The thing is, there are so many we would not have read if we hadn't had this podcast. Mm-hmm. There are just so many authors that I never heard of before we started this, that I am now hooked on. And Chris Nixon is one.
Oh, definitely. And it really was hard to choose because there were so many good books, good authors. That one sticks out in my mind most, I think. And then my favorite nonfiction would have to be Mrs. Sherlock Holmes. I really like that too, as a nonfiction.
Yeah, Brad Ricka did an amazing job.
I would have picked I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Oh, by Michelle McNamara.
That was an excellent book. That's one I would pick for nonfiction.
I would say that my favorite nonfiction would have to be The Murder of Vincent van Gogh by Nick van der Leek. Made me re-examine everything about the case, and actually, Nick...
More and more people are changing their minds on whether he was murdered or committed suicide.
I had to give him kudos for that on Twitter when I saw that, to say any of that would have happened if you wouldn't have dove so deep. Okay, my favorite mystery has got to be Karen Ellis' Map of the Dark. That book was
fantastic. Book.
It was one of those books that I just could not turn the pages fast enough. Karen is just such a talented writer. Katya Leaf is her real name. She writes under Karen Ellis. And I look forward to anything she puts out based on Map of the Dark.
But there are so many.
I know. Well,
Mark Pryor.
It was really hard to...
it's just so difficult to pick one or two even. Have read so many.
And yes,
great
and just
books.
because we're mentioning these does not mean that the other books paled in comparison. This was a tough, it's like picking one of your children.
Well, I don't know. You and your brother, I can pick which one I like best, but I'm not telling you.
Yeah, don't.
Well, you fully tell them both you're my favorite.
Oh, she's my favorite daughter, and he's my favorite son. So
there you go. There you go.
A cheater.
Good thing I didn't have a third.
So now we're going to move on to our favorite interview. And I think it goes without saying that we're just going to take Alan Bradley and put him as
Top
our
of the list.
And then other than Alan Bradley, and I have to tell the listening audience that Alan Bradley has been our most listened to episode. It has blown the other ones away, actually. And so we know that it must be your favorite also. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the other memorable ones.
Oh, gee. I would say Kathy Ace was a delight, and we just fell in love with her. And she's been on the show twice. I look forward to her books as they come out. Another author I never would have read was just bubbly and warm, and she was funny. You felt like you knew her when you were talking to her time.
And she took time out of her vacation to talk with us.
Yes, she did.
And she goes on lots of vacations.
And volunteered to go with.
One thing that I was so impressed with Kathy is she was so prepared. Her interview questions just were so well formed. She entertained us while we were interviewing her. I definitely agree with that one.
She's a delight, and I can't wait to meet her at Malice.
She will be at Malice.
I am so excited.
And you, Kathy?
I'm going to go with a hometown favorite, our friend Roland Savage. I really enjoyed the interview.
Our buddy.
Not only because he put out a lovely spread for us,
but that helped. But we are bribed very easily.
But of course, we know Roland from our local book club. We have known all along that he is a great conversationalist and a very interesting person, has a wealth of experience to draw from. We really had no doubt that he would give a good interview, and he did. We had a wonderful time talking about psychopaths and sociopaths.
What about you, Tracy?
I would say one of our very first interviews was with Lauren Carr, and she was so animated talking about the dog Sterling in the book, and the antics with her real dogs was just such a delight. I really enjoyed those interviews, and in turn, I really enjoyed Ice, the Chris Matheson book that we reviewed for that episode. It was just such a great book.
And I've gone on to read several more of hers.
She has quite a few.
And she puts them out there, and they're all great mysteries. They just grab you and the action starts.
We would be remiss if we didn't mention one of our mainstays on the show. He's already been on a few times. I can guarantee you will hear more from him as this podcast progresses, and that would be Desmond Ryan.
Our buddy Desmond. He writes the wonderful Mike O'Shea series from Canada, and we are waiting with anticipation for his book series based on Mike's mama, Maggie O'Shea.
Maggie O'Shea, yes, definitely.
And her.
Hurry up, Desmond. We're waiting.
Yes. Keep writing.
All right, and I think next we'll talk about some of the events we attended over the year, and we've learned a lot.
The hard way.
And some things we will not be doing again, and some things we will definitely do again.
We had a table at the Collingswood Book Festival in New Jersey last year. It was a great day. We had a good town. I could go back there 100 times. It was just one of those small towns that is close to a city, but it keeps its small town vibe, and they had this wonderful book festival, and we spent the whole day there.
And we took my niece.
It was a great day.
If we ever do it again, we will be mobile and walk around and visit the different authors.
Yes, we hope to do that again.
Because unfortunately we're poor and it's a free event, so
that's the kind we go
if
to
it's
the
free,
most.
it's me, and in me I mean us. Kathy, would you like to mention an event we did this year?
I would have to say when we visited the Baltimore City Medical Examiner's office.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we had a special event. I just found out about it like the day of, that they were showing and explaining the
Francis Glessner Lee, The Nutshell Studies of Unexplained Death,
which are miniature dioramas of murder scenes that were built in the 1940s, I think it was, and they were so detailed, and they were used to train police officers and detectives on how to solve murders.
How to process a scene.
Right. And they still are today. They're being used at the medical examiner's office, and they have groups of police officers come in and look at them and test their knowledge on how to process a murder scene. That was just wonderful.
Well, the best thing about that night is we really thought we were only attending an event. We're going to listen to a speaker and they were going to show us slides. And that went really quickly. Well, there were quite a few of us in the room. He said, "Hey, you want to go over and see them?" We could not get out of our seats fast enough.
Yes, we want to see them.
Amazing. Because it is not a display that's usually open to the public. It's behind doors in the medical examiner's office, so they very rarely go out for public viewing.
Well, Kathy and I had got to see them when they were down at the limited time showing down at the one of the Smithsonian Art Museums, but it was so packed we didn't get to see many of them up close and personal. And
the nice thing about this was it was crowded, but it wasn't so crowded that you couldn't stand there and see what you wanted to see.
So it was a lovely, great surprise to find that new event and then go see them.
Yeah.
Again.
And I would have to say the event that stuck out in my mind, it really was not necessarily a trip we did as a podcast, but we kind of did some side visits. We went to see a play in Lancaster, and we spent the day in Lidditz, Pennsylvania.
Oh, yes.
And we went to a bookstore up there called Aaron's Books. And the reason I mention it is something we want to do more of. We want to do some more trips to some more bookstores in the Chesapeake region and try to get to know some of these booksellers and readers also.
And let them know us.
Mm-hmm. Now I know we make this sound so smooth and wonderful. Chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. We've had some interesting things happen over this year that mostly with our audio equipment. I have to say all of our authors have been amazing at their willingness to re-record. We've had episodes that we forgot to save and then had to call that author back to say, "Are you willing to re-record?" And they have been gracious enough.
Goodness.
We have one author in particular that we tried 3 times. Yikes.
Yeah. And that was Nicola Upson.
Yeah.
And
she was a good sport.
She was a trooper. And if you go back and listen to that episode, you will hear the first part. It sounds beautiful, but in saying that, I have a brand new computer. We have not had any issues since I got the...
Knock on wood.
Knock on something. My head, whatever. After this year, we plan on bringing you lots of great new authors. We're going to change the format just a little bit. We're not going to be doing the alphabet anymore. And I think the 3 of us are very happy to... We didn't quite finish it, but we were running into some difficulties difficulties with some of those pesky letters that don't have a lot of names with them, we'll say.
So we're going to skip
we got
X,
up to
Y, and
W.
Z.
So we did our best. I think, to be honest with you, for those of you who are sticking with us, the alphabet became much more important to us and not so important to our listeners.
It was very limiting to some of the authors that we could have interviewed in the meantime.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that we bring you as many authors as we can. So we're going to just open up the format a little bit. Now we're going to let you know what our most listened to episodes were over this past